we have to understand that this is part of China's disinformation strategy, twisting the narrative away from the reality. China-backed narratives make it seem that it is not in our best interest based on international law. And in fact, just recently, the Global Times also reported that Prime Minister Kishida's visit will be riling up the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea, for example. And we have to understand that this is not just merely propaganda. China is investing billions of dollars, just a recent State Department report, in disinformation campaigns, to project itself as the victim, to project itself that it is a responsible player, and that other actors such as the Philippines are illicitly provoking the status quo, which is far from what is actually happening on the ground. So you asked about what we could do in terms of addressing these concerns, right? Well, looking at it in terms of disinformation, national governments must empower professional journalism, encourage responsible and transparent reporting on critical developments that take place in strategic areas, and not just in the West Philippine Sea, but of course also projecting what is taking place in the rest of the Indo-Pacific to show that this is actually a pattern that China continues to engage in, not just with us, but with other like-minded partners as well, like Japan. And just very briefly, we also look into how a public-private partnership must also be forged to strengthen norms surrounding online accountability. So we look at it merely as just online propaganda, but we must know that this is a serious tool that China continues to utilize for its strategy in the West Philippine Sea in particular. It's gaining without the overt use of military force. And we have to address this through non-orthodox strategies. And this is one of them, of course.
The visit of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, how significant is that when it comes to timing? And what exactly is in it for Japan to ally with the Philippines? I mean, you also talked about a pattern that this is also happening with like-minded partners like Japan. So to give us more context on what's at stake for Japan as they come here for the visit and the meeting with President Marcos.
Right, thank you. And, from a broader context, we have to put this visit in a context, exactly what you've just said, right? So from a broader perspective, Japan is one of the largest, if not the largest resident investor in the Indo-Pacific. In fact, the concept of free and open Indo-Pacific is rooted in the vision of former Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, as early as 2007, the confluence of two seas. Now, being the only G7 member, that is Asian, Japan makes it a point to intertwine its foreign policy with the security of the region. And today, Tokyo continues to illustrate its commitment, to bolster its role as a trusted security and development partner, particularly in the Indo-Pacific. And being both Asian, Indo-Pacific neighbors and democracies, the interests of the Philippines and Japan greatly align, in keeping the region open, inclusive, stable, and grounded in international law. Right? So we have to understand that more importantly, our contemporary foreign policy under President Marcos Jr. allows us to open up new avenues of cooperation with partners like Japan in defense and development. In fact, Prime Minister Kishida will only be the sixth leader to have the honor of addressing a joint Congress session since 1960. And that shows us how much importance we attribute to our partnership with Tokyo. And more importantly, Manila and Tokyo also shared similar threat perceptions towards China, right? And this is not only in terms of territorial expansion in the traditional sense, but also disinformation. If you remember the position of China regarding Japan's release of Fukushima water was blown out of proportions because it was trying to depict Japan as an irresponsible power, despite the fact that China has often engaged in releasing water that is not in line with international law and safety standards. Japan exactly did that. But it's all about twisting the narrative for China, right? So this is where we align. And we complement each other's interests in this regard.
Sir, what do you make of China's statement? They said dinidiktahan lang daw ng US ang Pilipinas.
No, I do not think so. I think this is far from reality because, at the end of the day, they are anxious, of course. The main point here is that they do not want us in the Philippines to overtly present our case in defending and securing our sovereignty and sovereign rights. And I've said this again and again. So the Philippines is in no way engaging in bloc politics. It's not. Okay, enhancing our partnership with the U.S., Japan, Australia, India, non-traditional partners, the EU, even Canada, is a means to an end and not an end in itself. So it's a means to securing our sovereignty and sovereign rights. It's in no way trying to bandwagon or to put all our eggs in one strategic basket, right? So, but obviously, the only way for us to safeguard our territorial integrity, improve our maritime security capabilities, is by partnering with like-minded partners that share the same vision, given our limited resources. And this is, of course, a pragmatic step forward that we are trying to do.
Don, well, the visit of Japan Prime Minister is to tackle the issues of the West Philippine Sea, but they also aim this quasi-alliance, for joint training. Can you tell us more about this, and why is it actually significant?
Right. I think we're in fact anticipating some sort of a reciprocal access agreement with Japan. Japan has it with the UK, for example, right? Just recently, they have concluded that agreement. So an RAA will simply means that we would be able to simplify procedures for operationalizing our cooperative activities with Japan in terms of bilateral security activities like port calls and joint exercises, right? And this will also complement the VFA we have with the US, the SVFA we have with Australia. But of course, we have to be careful about the terminologies, right? The U.S. is our sole treaty ally, right? So this does not make Japan a treaty ally, but of course we would be enhancing our partnership close to what we could see as a treaty ally, right? So you have to be careful about the terminologies as well. So hopefully we will also be able to institutionalize, this is what I'm actually looking into, a regularized maritime exercise with Japan. Making it institutionalized, making it regularized, which will of course serve as an important symbol of our shared commitment. Because as we know, China is always ready to exploit any form of policy inconsistency. We've seen this since the 1990s. It's a pattern, as I've mentioned. So we have to make sure that we stay consistent. Given, of course, our electoral system, every 6 years we have a new president, right? So we have to make sure that we set the groundwork, make it formidable, to the point that it would not seem we are inconsistent in our approach. And that is something that is a way to show China that we are serious about our commitment.